Good morning, freshmen, and happy Tuesday. I'm excited that today we'll get to continue our discussion of adding fractions. Today we're going to add mixed numbers. Let's jump right in and do some examples together. Our first example is 2 1/5 plus 3 2/3. Just like yesterday, the very first thing that I'll do, and the thing that I want you to do on your paper next to example 1, is draw your t-chart. And remember, one side of our t-chart is for whole numbers and one is for fractions. Let's fill it in. 2 1/5, I can fill in my t-chart, and 3 2/3. When I add mixed numbers, the first thing I need to do is add the fractions. Before I can add fractions 1/5 and 2/3, what do I need to make the same about them? They both need to have the same denominator. In order for me to figure out what that denominator is, I need to find the least common denominator. Find the least common denominator of 5 and 3. What's the LCD of 5 and 3? Well, when I count by 5s and by 3s, the least common denominator is 15, because it's the smallest number that's in both lists of multiples. Now I can change each fraction to an equivalent fraction over the least common denominator. Remember, the fraction has to have the same value, so I have to multiply by the same number in the numerator and the denominator. Let's do that now. How do I change 1/5 so that the denominator is 15? I multiply by 3 in the numerator and denominator. 1 times 3 is 3. Now, let's change 2/3. When I change 2/3, I know that I multiplied 3 times 5 to get 15, so I don't just put 5 on the line. I have to multiply 2 times 5. What's 2 times 5? It's 10. 2/3 equals 10 over 15. Now I can add my fractions. What's 3/15 plus 10/15? It's 13 over 15. I can't simplify, and it's not an improper fraction, so that's my fraction. Now let's add our whole numbers. What's 2 plus 3? It's 5. So my final answer is 5 and 13 over 15. Let's do another example. Draw your t-chart for 4 3/5 and 2 1/2. The first thing that I need to do is find the least common denominator. Do that now. The least common denominator is 10 in this example. Now change each fraction so that it's an equivalent fraction over the least common denominator. What is 3/5 going to equal? Well, 5 times 2 is 10, and 3 times 2 is 6. What is 1/2 going to equal? 2 times 5 is 10, and 1 times 5 is 5. Now I can add the fractions. 11 over 10 is what I get when I add 6/10 plus 5/10. But that can't stay on my fraction side. It's improper. What do I need to do to change it into a mixed number? I need to divide. 11 divided by 10. When I do that, 10 goes into 11 one time. 1 times 10 is 10, so my remainder is 1. This one is a whole number, so it's going to go over here on my whole number side. Go ahead and do that now on your paper. And I know that my new fraction is 1/10, because this mixed number is worth 1 1/10. Now I can add my whole numbers. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So when I add these mixed numbers together, I get 7 and 1/10. Let's do one more example. In this example, I can put all three numbers in my t-chart. 1 2/3, 2 1/4, 3 1/6. Again, I can't add fractions unless they have the same denominator. What's the least common denominator for these three fractions? Well, when I list my multiples, the smallest number that's a multiple of 3, 4, and 6 is 12. Change each fraction so that its denominator is 12. What will 2/3 equal? Well, 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 4 is 8. What will 1/4 equal? 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. What will 1/6 equal? 6 times 2 is 12. 1 times 2 is 2. So I can add up these three fractions to find my new fraction. 8 plus 3 is 11, plus 2 is 13 over 12. Can that stay on the fraction side? No, it can't. I need to change it into a mixed number. Let's do that now. I divide 12 into 13. 13 divided by 12 is 1. 1 times 12 is 12. Subtract and I get a remainder of 1. What should I do with this 1? I need to put it on the whole number side. What's the fraction that I now have? It's 1/12. Now I can add my whole numbers. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 2 is 4, plus 3 is 7. So the answer to this problem is 7 and 1/12. You've done a great job on your video. Now it's time for you to get some practice.